Round for me too.
Good afternoon. Let's call the meeting to order. Welcome to KIPTA, Transportation Technical Coordination Committee. Today is Wednesday, September 11th, just a few minutes after 1 p.m. Andy, would you please do the roll call?
Yes, ma'am. Bullitt County, Charlestown. Anybody? J-Town's not here today. They've got a Gaslight Festival event today, and so thank you, Ida, for filling in for me. Jeffersonville. We'll find one eventually. Mount Washington. New Albany. I think I saw Larry.
Larry here from New Albany.
Join us. Anybody from Shepherdsville? So Arthur. St. Matthews.
Here.
Clark County. Floyd County. NDOT. That's all, Kathy.
Yes, Kathy Eaton McCallum.
Kentucky DAQ, I believe so. How about KYTC, Central Office?
Isidro Delgado.
Hi, Isidro.
Fine.
KYTC District 5. Hi, Tom.
Brian.
Hi, Brian. I see Tracy. Hi, Tracy. I see you out there.
Tracy Lovell.
KYTC Office of Transportation Delivery. Metro APCD.
We're here. Thank you very much.
Oh, Rachel says here too. Thank you all for both joining us. Louisville Metro Economic Development. Let's see, Mike. I don't see Mike. Planning and Design. Public Works. Louisville Metro Public Works. Hi, Jennifer. Anybody from the Airport Authority today? Oldham County.
Jim Silverman, Oldham County Engineer.
Oldham County Planning Commission.
Ryan Fisher.
Hi, Ryan. Welcome.
Yep.
Port of Indiana. I believe so. Is Allie here from TARC Accessibility Council? I believe so. Clarksville.
Here.
Red. And TARC. Ada's here. Anybody else from TARC? I believe so. Looks like Deputy Judge Ender is here too from Oldham County. So welcome to you. We most certainly have a quorum, and I'd also like to recognize some of the advisory members, to include Tanya Higdon from Federal Highways, Kentucky. Thank you for joining us, Tanya.
Good morning or afternoon.
Folks from Louisville Metro that will be one of our guest presenters, so we'll hear more from them just in a couple of minutes. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
And I recognize we also have Anna Barge with Oldham County Planning.
Hi, Anna. Welcome to KIPTA TTCC.
Thanks. Second item on the agenda is August TTCC meeting minutes for review and approval, and they were included in your packet. I hope you all had the opportunity to review. Are there any comments, questions, or revisions to the minutes? No? Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye or raise your hands. Motion moves forward. Thank you. Item number 3 is Transportation Policy Committee report. Staff will review the activities of the August 24 TPC meeting. With that, and
Yes, ma'am. So our TPC met most recently on Thursday, August 22nd, here in this room. Some of the highlights of that meeting included Aida's presentation on the TARC 2025 efforts. For those that might not have made it, it's surrounding the route changes that seem to be imminent due to the fiscal cliff of the funding situation that TARC finds itself in. Is it fair characterization, perhaps? We processed a minor update to our UPWP, changing some funding around and assigning the funding to our planning studies that went to a few of the local governments in the room this fiscal year. Brady talked a little bit about both the cost increases of our dedicated funds, talked a little bit about our call for projects. Reminder that the October 31st is the deadline for that. We talked a little bit about our Indiana meeting that I think we had just had right before then. A little bit on the Sixth Streets and Roads for All. And then Erica Tate from the Federal Highways Indiana division came and talked a little bit about some of the grant opportunities at Federal Highways. And so it was definitely a full agenda, especially as we recap it here today. So that concludes our report. Happy to answer your questions about it.
No questions? Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Andy. Item number 4, public comment period. The committee will facilitate review of all comments submitted prior to the TTCC meeting, and we will entertain any comments offered as part of this agenda item. Greg.
Yes, did not receive any comments prior to the meeting. Do not see anything in Q&A. If anything comes up, we'll bring it up in other business.
Thank you. Item number 4, Louisville Metro Bike Implementation Plan. Chris Butts and Lou Lapping with Metro will present and discuss the recent bike plan implementation. And we welcome you to share your information, and we look forward to learning more about the bike plan implementation. Thank you.
Thanks, Aida. Can you all hear us?
Yes, we can.
Great. Just a quick introduction. My name is Chris Butts. I'm a transportation planner with Louisville Metro Public Works and Bike Louisville. With me is Lou Lepping with the Office of Planning, and we were the project managers for the Bikeway Implementation Plan. So real quick, I'm going to share my screen and hopefully you guys can see it.
Yeah, you can share something. Fans on. Should be able to share.
Here it comes. Here it comes. We got first.
Yep.
We got you, Chris.
Yeah, great. So our Bikeway Implementation Plan, just a quick overview of the process and how this plan came about. It was really to build off of our last bike master plan for Louisville Metro, which was back in 2018. We wanted to look at their recommendations, see if they still held up to our community engagement efforts, and also see if there's ways to improve on that and build off of that network, and also find quick build opportunities to improve our network and set up an agenda for bikeway improvements for the future. So we're just going to go through the plan, not page by page, because we don't want to take up all of your all's time, but we'll hit some of the key findings and recommendations from the plan. The plan's basically broken up into 3 chapters. We look at our existing network, our network goals, and what we really wanted to get out of the plan, and how we wanted biking to be prioritized in Louisville Metro. Chapter 2 dives into our community outreach initiatives and all of the engagement opportunities and feedback that we received throughout the planning process. And chapter 3 gets into the actual action plan and the agenda to move forward the strategies that we would use to get actual improvements on the ground. So I'll let Lou take over from here and go over some of the core goals that we had going into the plan.
Yeah, so we prioritized, we identified and prioritized 4 specific goals for this plan. Goal 1 was to connect people to places, and goal 2, I'll speak to the first 2. Goal 2 was to improve economic mobility and access. These were probably the most important to us because we feel that, you know, after assessing Louisville's existing bike network, we identified some real shortfalls in basically just moving people around. And so we were able to look at, let me scroll down here a little bit. Chris and I spent a fair bit of time identifying key activity centers around Louisville. And when we paired that with some Justice 40 equity data, we identified routes and that made sense across Louisville with by prioritizing really creating strong north-south and east-west connections to get people across town. Basically, what our primary goal was to create sort of a parallel to a transit system except for bikes. So those were our primary goals and the ways that we solved goals 1 and 2, connecting people to places and improving economic mobility and access. For goal number 2, it was really important to us that we create strong corridors, spines across Louisville so that folks from the west end could easily get to the east end, from the south end could easily get to downtown. And that really plays into that mobility access, economic mobility and access there. And I'll pass it off to Chris to talk about goals 3 and 4.
Sure. So our third goal was prioritizing rider safety and reducing traffic stress. And we heard this time and time again with when we were engaging with the community, with riders, with people who don't ride but would like to ride, that riding in Louisville can be a stressful experience, to say the least. And one of our goals in this plan was to prioritize infrastructure that would be suitable for riders of all ages, all abilities, and encourage more people to get out and maybe commute by bike or just travel by bike who aren't necessarily within that maybe 1% of riders who would ride in any condition, in any circumstance, but rather the majority of the population who need protected or buffered infrastructure separated from traffic to feel comfortable to get out. Our fourth goal was to create a strategic network based on a variety of data collection that we had and public engagement efforts that we would go out and ride these networks ourselves. We have group rides where we'd go out and encourage other cyclists to come ride them with us and provide their feedback. And we really wanted to pair this with the opportunity zones that Lou mentioned before, and also with all 4 of our goals to help create a strategic network that that accomplishes all of the goals that we wanted for our network. So some of the factors that we used to prioritize this network, we looked at it through an equity lens. We took Justice 40 tracks and paired them with our existing network, and we looked at safety improvement opportunities. The high injury network from Vision Zero Louisville was a very valuable tool that we used to overlay with our existing network and with activity centers, and seeing what networks needed more attention to help cyclists feel more comfortable riding, demand, and as well, just looking at what neighborhoods need and want and where they want to go. Field work, again, we went out and rode these routes ourselves, and we wanted, due to the tight time frame of the plan, we started it in late February, early March, and we had a deadline of the end of the fiscal year, June 30th. So we had a very quick turnaround, but we were able to pack in a lot of planning and a lot of community engagement that helped shape our core network and our recommendations and setting an agenda for Louisville. The existing network, this was an effort for us to look at the infrastructure we do have on the ground and seeing what our starting point is and where we can move forward. The existing network, well, I'll go into this when we look at our engagement initiatives, our engagement efforts, but the existing network was splintered and often did not cater to riders of all ages and abilities. Most of the people we talked to did not feel comfortable riding much of our existing network. You can see our network here in orange. Much of it is shared use paths. When we're looking at the existing low stress network that we have, a lot of it is shared use paths, part of the Louisville Loop, within the scenic loop here in Cherokee Park. We have shared use paths along the river, but when you get into the core of downtown and then moving out into some of these urban neighborhoods, the facilities are often disconnected and don't really provide community riders a long, stress-free ride, as we heard talking to riders face to face. Our program network, we also looked at planned projects in the near future. We have Main Street here, East Market, some of the SS4A projects in Louisville. We wanted to incorporate those planned projects into our planned network so we could address them when they came up and make sure that they are hitting the goals that we set in this planning process. I'll let Lou take over with the core network.
Yeah, so I kind of hit on it before. But the core network that we defined was, we took a really strong look at our existing network, and we assessed it for its shortfalls. As Chris mentioned, it was very splintered, divided, and it really didn't provide great access across the city. As I mentioned before, our priority here, our main goal was to be able to move people across Louisville, like east, west, and north to south. So that is what led us to create this orange network that you see here. We really feel that this network addresses the main goals of moving people across Louisville and also creating sort of a functional transit system for bikes. A lot of bike networks and specifically in Louisville, a lot of the neighborways that are sort of the safest routes for bikers, for cyclists currently, are really circuitous, winding paths. And we felt strongly that we should give people strong corridors, strong spines to travel across and through Louisville, because if you're really being realistic about the ways that people ride and want to move, they want to get there via the most efficient route. And so that's why we prioritized these strong spines across Louisville. And then I'll just briefly say that the long-term network incorporates all of these different layers. I know this map is a little bit chaotic, but effectively, if you were to change all of these colors into blue, you'd see that there's a pretty strong network we're building here. The long-term network here essentially serves to add connections between the core network map that we're prioritizing. So just to help folks get around even more efficiently and from more places. And I'll hand it over to Chris again.
Yeah, so chapter 2 goes over our public engagement efforts for this plan, and we really were able, with such a short timeline, to pack in a lot of engagement and a lot of feedback from the community, from cyclists, and from key stakeholders. So we started off in March with a virtual open house public meeting. We had a good turnout, over 50 comments, 2 hours of good discussion with riders, with public officials, with community members who really were encouraged to see that this plan was getting off the ground and refreshing our 2018 master plan. We then set up a community advisory committee that met several times throughout this process. We had an open survey that we distributed through the community. We had 170 responses to that. We had an interactive map where people could just set a pin or draw a line where they thought more protected infrastructure could be placed or improvements could be placed. They could add comments directly on the input map, and that was a great tool for us in setting our priorities for our core network. Our pop-up events for our Design Charrette Week, we had in-person public open house that was at the Main Street Library. We also had a pop-up event at West 6 on Market, and also a pop-up bike social ride where we took the initial kind of rough draft core network that we were testing, and we actually went out and wrote it with several dozen community riders who came out and gave their input and let us know what sections they felt comfortable with and what sections they absolutely did not feel comfortable with. So some of the key takeaways, what we would hear throughout this process, a huge emphasis on separated and protected bike lanes. Safety was a key theme throughout this whole planning process. People really felt like Louisville was lacking in protected infrastructure that really let them feel comfortable riding on a daily basis. Also connectivity, like Lou mentioned earlier, our existing network of bike infrastructure of bike lanes are not connected. We heard that from our consultants, our consulting team, Alta, who and EHI, who came and rode that network with us. They noticed that if they were riding in a bike lane, that bike lane may just end abruptly, and that was a cause for concern, and also for people who ride that every day, they had the same feedback. So just key themes: more protected bike lanes was heard often. Infrastructure maintenance, again, and in my role with Bike Louisville, that's something I hear on a regular basis, is that maintaining the infrastructure that we have should also be a major priority, and that even with cyclists who are comfortable riding in the lanes that we do have, often they are filled with debris and they actually can't be utilized. So maintenance was a huge concern. Connectivity, the desire for more safety, multi-use trails, shared use paths, getting our bike facilities maybe off the street and out of traffic. Here are just a few highlighted quotes. I would love to safely bike more for personal errands, but the barriers, bike lanes just end, like we said before. Prioritizing connecting existing bike infrastructure, and allowing kids to bike to school safely for protected bike lanes. So safe routes to school was also a major thing that we would hear. What's the next word? Sure. These are just a few of the key frequently mentioned locations we have mapped out. And then chapter 3 is the actual action plan, the implementation report of the plan, and I'll let Lou take over here.
Yeah, so paired with our the facility recommendations that we've already discussed, the sort of keystones of implementation that we identified for this plan and for just generally our programming should be continued community engagement. we and the consultants feel strongly that we need to form a community advisory committee that can help us push these things into action, help us maybe by prioritizing the paving and street sweeping plans, using those as a playbook. We need an annual funding allotment to help get this infrastructure down on the ground. This plan does help us really, by really strategically setting us up well to apply for grants, both federal and state grants, and then also just working really strategically with partners and stakeholders around town. And so this plan does a really good job of illustrating the different facilities, the costs, the accessibilities, as Chris mentioned, for all ages and abilities, and it sets us up well to apply for those grants that I mentioned briefly. Here's just a quick glance at some of the folks who helped us get this plan off the ground, and also folks that we think would make great partners moving forward. I'll throw it to you guys.
So really, this plan is meant to be used as a tool. So it recommends building off of the engagement that we started with at the beginning of this process. So we had a lot of groups really interested in prioritizing bike infrastructure, and we wanted to build off of that momentum. So this plan does recommend setting up a bicycle advisory committee. It's essentially extending our community stakeholder group that met a handful of times throughout this plan. It would be a committee that meets often, maybe monthly, to look at our existing network and go over opportunities where we could start to implement this plan. So the strategies that we outline in the public engagement, or the implementation portion of this plan would be to use the plan to go after funding opportunities when they arise. An issue that we had was that with the 2018 plan, we weren't ready to apply for these grants when they came up, because we didn't have the community engagement set up. We didn't have the design or the plans in place to go after these funding opportunities. Now that we have this plan set up, we can then take portions of it and include it in possibly the tip. We would like to add the bikeway implementation plan to the MTP, just to have it ready and set as a resource that we will then use to go after funding opportunities. And we can see that in our cut sheets here. The plan includes 3 cut sheets, 3 example plans, projects out of the core network. We can use more and develop more projects to break off from this plan, but right now we have 3 that we could start with. The 25th to 23rd Street connector would be a major north-south connector in the West End, connecting these neighborways with better intersection improvements. Camel Street came up quite a bit. A lot of people were wanting a safe, low-stress connector to the river. This Camel Street addresses that by showing off the Camel Street to Chestnut connector, a shared use path, and getting people to and from the waterfront. And then the Hill Street corridor is also prioritized with and each cut sheet has preliminary rough cost estimates and designs that would help an application for funding. So just a brief overview of the action steps laid out for this plan were setting up applications for funding opportunities, leaning on existing paving schedules and programmed projects. Also, going after dedicated local funding for improvements, and also continuing that public engagement through our community advisory committee. And that is just briefly an overview of our bikeway implementation plan, but Lou and I are happy to answer any questions you all have.
Thank you, Chris and Lou. It looks like we have a great plan and ready for implementation. It's so good to know that the community is moving forward with implementing multimodal options and improving mobility for all. Sounds like a great plan. So the floor is open for any questions for Chris and Lou.
I don't have a question, but just a reminder that this plan was funded through the fiscal year 24 call for studies that we would have done in the springtime of calendar 24. And so it's a good example of the funding. Those are the planning dollars that we make available to the local communities to do studies like this, not giant ones, to be clear, but medium-sized ones like this one. So that next call for studies will probably be around for our fiscal 26. Likely will be in springtime. So plan to hear from KIPTA staff. Brady helped administer this current year, so probably around March or so. It's about when we did it last year, or this year, if you will. So probably March 2025 is when we'll announce, how much money we have available, how much federal funds we have available to share with the public.
Thank you. That really emphasizes the importance of the planning funds available to agencies, because without good funds, we never have good projects.
That's right.
So, thank you. We have a
I
question
have
from
one-
Tom Paul, yeah?
Yeah,
Go ahead,
one
Tom.
question in KYTC District 5 planning, and that is, over the years, there have been several bike master plans, implementation plans, and I was curious, does this supersede that in all other plans?
Did you guys hear the question?
Yes, so yeah, we would say Bike Louisville and Louisville Metro had several plans up until our most recent in 2018, and this is really an extension of those plans and building off of those recommendations, but also updating them to match what the existing conditions look like today and what the community was really wanting to get out of their bike network. So yeah, I would say that this would be, it's our hope that this is seen as the new updated official plan.
Okay. Thank you. So any other questions? Chris and Lou, is the plan available on the Metro website?
It is. So if you go to Bike Louisville's page on Metro's website, so it's just bikelouisville.com, you'll be able to see it there on the home screen.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much for your presentations, and we look forward to see the next steps in action and plan implementation.
Thank you for your support of this plan.
Yeah, thank you.
So, thanks. Item number 6 on the agenda is Kentucky Grant Program 2024. KIPTA staff will highlight new state financial assistance opportunities for federal grants through the new grant program, and Andy will present.
Yes, ma'am. Felicia Harper is our Director of Community Economic Development here at KIPTA. You might know Felicia. You just saw that she left out of the room. She had to go to a meeting, so I'm going to kind of fill in for her on this one. I think what we'll do is invite her or her staff back to TPC, so maybe some of this information, because I've got some, but she and Dustin Duncan over there certainly have more. So the grant program of 2024, it's an acronym, GRANT is what is the grant program. So it's a grant program about grants. So grant stands for Government Resources Accelerating Needed Transformation. Government Resources Accelerating Needed Transformation. What it is at the last legislative session earlier this year, there was money budgeted from the state, talking Kentucky only here, Economic Development Cabinet, I believe the number is somewhere around $200 million over the biennium, if I'm not mistaken. Basically, to fill the gap on all of these federal discretionary grants, call them discretionary grants in transportation world, they'd probably call them other things, and in the other grants that are out there. But the void is the local governments don't have the match money by and large to match these grants at the 80-20 or the 50-50 rate. And so this program is meant to fill that void, okay? And so it's meant, so eligible applicants are cities and counties and 501c3s. And just recently, I think literally during the TPC meeting last month, we got guidance from Economic Development Cabinet that said that MPOs and ads are eligible also. And so KIPTA staff, KIPTA CED staff, to be clear, they've helped some of the small counties, the non-urban counties, pursue some of this grant funding. So what does it mean? It means that whereas that 80-20 match is typical in transportation, or even the 50-50 match that might be relevant to certain grants, counties across Kentucky are max out at a 5% local match rate. So that's a great deal, right? All three KIPTA MPO counties are ranked across Kentucky, I think based on population. I believe it's simply based on population. And so since Bullitt and Oldham Jefferson are three of the larger counties, it's on the high end of what match is required. So it's a 5% match. The very small counties in Kentucky, they're off the hook on a lot of that, and they only have to pay 1%. So it's a great deal for a county like Trimble County, for example. So it's one of the small counties in Kentucky. And so it's a fantastic program. I encourage you to reach out to myself or other KIPTA staff. Felicia Harper or Dustin Duncan have most of the answers. But if you find yourself seeing a federal grant program, transportation or otherwise, that says, man, that looks like a great program, I just don't think we have the $1 million to match it. Well, what if that $1 million was $250,000? What if, because that's what this program is meant to do. It's pretty, as we understand it, and as our CED staff have pursued it, you can get answers in a pretty quick manner. It's within a matter of a week or two, it sounds like. And so they really want to get this money out there. And so it's a really fascinating program. I hope it's a good sign of things to come, because that local match burden is pretty high. So I'd be happy to answer any questions I have. I don't know that I'll have all the answers, but I'll be happy to share them with Felicia and or try to get you those answers otherwise.
So the money is available now.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
And this short response is critical, because sometimes we have open grant application that we have a month or two to apply for. So it's important to know in this time frame how to get this local match.
And as I understand it, you don't have to have the grant in hand. You don't have to have it in hand right now. So you can be an applicant and say, and you can be an applicant to the federal grant, and then you can also be pursuing
at the same time
the grant program 2024, as it's called. And if you don't get apparently so far it's been a lot of yeses and very few nos on the state side. So if the federal grant doesn't materialize, it's no harm, no foul. But it is something that's worth kicking tires on for sure, because the match savings is tremendous. For those of you that might have been at TPC, you might have heard the discussion about the Reconnecting Communities Pilot Program grant. That's a federal discretionary transportation grant. The deadline for application is in late September, and KYTC is pursuing one of those of a pretty large size, I believe, $15 million federal, and for a $30 million project. And so that KIPTA is going to assist and basically perhaps even be the name of the applicant, I guess, the official name of the application, just due to eligibility, and maybe in some level looks better. But anyways, we'd like to pursue that. That's a 50-50 match. So we're gonna see what happens, right? We're gonna see what happens and make somebody tell us no, so to speak. And that's gonna be a fantastic program that would look to improve, those who didn't hear, the Portland area in the west end of Louisville. Basically the I-64 has split Portland up, and when it was built 60 or 70 years ago, whenever it was built. And so this project will perhaps soften the blow, making better pedestrian bicycle connections to get to the park, to get to the Little League fields, to connect to over by the Lockton Dam over there. So we're applicants ourselves these days, and so I would encourage all local governments that get the region to take full advantage of it if you can.
Excellent, thank you. Of course, I will want to know how transit might be an applicant as well, and I guess I will need to learn more.
It's a great question.
Felicia's help and transit projects a little bit.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're trying. Again, make say no.
It's a great opportunity, thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is amendment number 7 to the fiscal year 2023-26 Transportation Improvement Program and Connecting Kentuckiana 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. Staff will highlight the proposed changes and ongoing public outreach efforts for Amendment 7 to the TIP and MPP. Action will be requested, and we welcome this.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. So Amendment 7, we are finally here presenting it. I feel like we've been working on it for quite a while so far. The meeting packet includes the full project list, the IAC meeting minutes, and also the air quality analysis details. Okay, so our task summary so far, Amendment 7 project updates were collected by July 19th this year. The air quality activities occurred throughout the month of August and first week of September, with our IAC meeting back on August 13th. Our public comment period is currently underway. We've got a virtual meeting next week on September 17th. It's from 5 to 6 p.m. I'm not sure if Greg mentioned that earlier, but anyone who wants to join, that's when that is. Today I'm going to be asking for recommendation for TPC approval later this month, and this is a full amendment, and it'll require the federal air quality conformity approval after that. So I've clumped the updates in chunks. I've got all the Indiana projects here. We've just got 3 this time. Clarksville's Stanford Ave Streetscape Improvements 3019. That one is having a little bit of an update to the scope. It's got a updated description and project limits. It's now going to be from South Clark Boulevard to I-65 and not out to Acres Avenue. And that's the only change there, no funding changes. Then NDOT's got 2 projects. We've got the US 150 at Old Vincennes Road project. It's a relatively small intersection improvement project. They're increasing the fiscal year 25 construction by 2.5 million total. And then NDOT also has the I-64 added travel lanes, which is a larger project. And that one's getting a $48 million increase and updates to the TIP funding. My next 6 are all similar. They're KYTC projects that are going to remain in the MTP, but they're being removed from the TIP until hopefully funding is secured later on, and then we'll pop them back into the TIP. They're all along the I-65 corridor ramp projects. Next, we've got some projects on Main Street. Well, really kind of just one project. We're going to be introducing the Main Remain project to the TIP and MTP. This is a KYTC sponsored project. There's going to be a parent project in the MTP, and that's for an estimated total project cost of $14 million. The overall project includes the conversion of Main Street to 2-way between 22nd Street and 10th Street, 2nd Street and Wenzel, and depending on a traffic analysis, possibly 2nd and 10th. Also, the addition of bicycle facilities, intersection safety improvements, and street resurfacing. So then there'll be 4 child projects under the umbrella of the parent project, and those will all be added to the TIP, the different sections there. Related to Main Remain is Louisville Metro Government's project number 1810. It's called the 1-way conversion to 2-way phase 2. So phase 1 has nothing to do with this. That's staying as it is. Phase 2, however, is currently in the MTP only, and it's going to be removed because all aspects of that project are already covered by other KIPTA IDs. And finally, I've got Kentucky 2050/Hare Lane. So what we're doing is we're organizing and cleaning up some administrative details here. We had a duplicate project with KYTC's Kentucky 2050 and Rural Metro Government's Hare Lane improvements. KYTC is the sponsor, and we're gonna be making KIPTA ID 2114 the parent project. Project will be in the MTP only and span from Hare Lane, or along Hare Lane from Westport Road to Brownsboro Road. The total project cost is $5.28 million. Then underneath that project will be a child project, KIPTA ID 3069. That will span from Westmar Terrace to Bedford Lane. So similar to the Main Street projects, we also will be removing a duplicate project here. We have KIPTA ID 3122, and that one is the Hare Lane Improvements Project. That's a Louisville Metro Government project, and it's covered by KY 2050. So we're gonna take that one out of the MTP. That's all I've got, but I will be asking for approval to recommend this for GPC approval.
Thank you, Chris. Good overview. Any questions for Chris? Really good job, no questions. Everybody knows everything. Thank you. So action is requested, and do we have a motion to approve Amendment 7 to the fiscal year 2023-2026 Transportation Improvement Program and Connecting Kentuckiana 2050 MTP?
Motion.
Thank you, Isidro. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tom. Any discussion? No questions. Thank you. Anyone in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Motion passes. Thanks.
Thanks, Anita. Thanks, everyone.
Item number 8 is call for project, and staff will unveil the latest information for the ongoing KIPTA call for projects. Action will be requested, and Brady will present.
Thank you, Anita.
Thanks.
Run through this pretty quickly. I'm skipping along the information that presented previously. Once again, agricultural projects. Andy mentioned the deadline for the applications is October 31st. So we're getting closer and closer to that deadline for this golf project period. There are 6 funding sources available as a part of the golf projects in Indiana and 3 in Kentucky. See them there. There are some changes to the Indiana funding availability breakdown based on recommendations that will be presented to you in the next agenda item because of some shifting around of project funding, programming and funding in fiscal year 25 for projects. So this is the most up-to-date projection for the funding availability for the Indiana side of this golf projects. The things of note here specifically, you'll notice 2030 is a lower number than previously presented to you. It was around 6 million, but because of a project projected to move back a year, all of its phases, that 2030 number has reduced, but the 2028 number has increased over what we projected it for before, because there's a project that did have $3.3 million worth of funding in fiscal year 28, but has since decided to fund that project locally this year, and therefore money has opened up in fiscal year 28. So there's still a fair bit of money available in Indiana, but the amounts per year have changed a little bit. We'll talk more about that in the next agenda item. Just and another reason I share this is a example of I've come up here a few times and presented about golf projects. I feel like every time I come up, the numbers are slightly different on what's available. The numbers available for golf projects is fluid for a variety of different reasons, this being one of them, and that's true for both states with projects changing their funding and phase shift years and all kinds of things. So when you are submitting applications for the golf projects, specifically for new projects, request the years for your project that you
would prefer to receive the funds if available. Whether or not the funds will actually be available in the years you would prefer is a different question that will be sorted out by the TTCC working group and funding availability, project scores, all that good stuff. But go ahead and request the years that you want, just with the understanding that you may not get those years, depending on how it works out. But even if you think there may not be funding available in 26, if projects move around through the call for project process, something may open up. So just present what you would like, and we'll work it out from there. One more note, as you're beginning to fill out these applications, full project applications are for new projects through this process, or projects undergoing substantive changes to the scope, and they are going to require an accurate mapping of the proposed project. And so you look at the application, there'll be a mapping question. That map is very important in the full project application. If you do an expedited application, which is just for existing projects, that the scope is not changing, nothing is changing other than some design fund requests probably. There is also a mapping question for the expedited one. It's not important. It's there because the software requires it to be there. All of that is explained in the instructions in the application. I just wanted to point it out one more time as a reminder that full application, the map is very important. Expedited application, the mapping is not. Okay, and the actual item for this agenda item is a request to form a TTCC working group for this call for projects. As a reminder for how these work, the working group consists of representatives from the different TTCC member agencies. Specifically, there are 5 that are always included: NDOT, KYTC, KIPTA, Louisville Metro, and TARC. And there are 2 rotating TTCC member agencies from Indiana and 2 from Kentucky. And so we will determine what those rotating members are after this meeting. But the request today would just be permission to form this TTCC working group for the golf projects.
Thank you, Brady. Any questions or comments? Okay, do we have a motion to move forward with this call for project and forming, keep the working group for the project evaluation process? Thank you, Tom.
Second.
Thank you, Jim. Any discussion? So no discussion, motion at the table. Everybody say aye or raise your hand in favor.
Aye.
Anyone in opposition? Thank you, motion passes. Item number 9, fiscal year 2025 Indiana MPO dedicated funding. Staff will highlight recent funding decisions for Indiana in fiscal year 2025. Action will be requested and Brady will continue to present.
Thank you. So there's a lot of changes I'm proposing here. We just had the most recent Indiana quarterly meeting on September 30th, a couple weeks ago. The main purpose of that meeting, aside from the other typical things of just discussing our project schedules and other items, is that there was, at that time, we believe there was $819,620 available in fiscal year 25 that we needed to program separately from the call for projects because we need to program it now in order for these funds to be used by the end of the Indiana fiscal year. And so those discussions were had of how we could best allocate those funds in fiscal year 25. Last week, I got an update from NDOT on the exact allocation amounts for KIPTA's MPO dedicated programs. We always have to estimate in future years what our allocation is going to be. Usually we keep that at a static level. Whatever we had the previous year, we assume that we have the same amount next year. In this case, because the rural areas census defined urban area has shrunk slightly, the total allocation for all 6 of the Indiana programs has shrunk by a little bit, a combined amount of around $200,000. But there is over $300,000 of fiscal 24 additional funds that have to be obligated by the end of this month, the end of the federal fiscal year, much of which that has already been authorized through KIPTA's every community accounts program, a CARE program, and a $14,000 cost increase we gave to a Clarksville project earlier, a couple months ago. I say all that to say, that means that we actually have $878,902 available for programming in fiscal year 25. And so we had 4 cost increase requests submitted to KIPTA staff, and these were the essentially decisions recommended by the quarterly group for TTCC. Summary of them: the 4 applications were from 4 different sponsors. So there's one from New Albany, one from Floyd County, one from Clarksville, and one from Clark County. You can see the funding amounts there. I'll go into the details of them. So these are the bolded numbers there are the breakdown of the $878,902 fiscal $25 available. And then there are also adjacent changes that will go together with just the simple programming of unprogrammed funds. I'll go through those. So first with New Albany, they have skipped ID 309 Mount Tabor Road was their cost increase request. This project, if you remember, had a utility phase in fiscal year 24 that did not get obligated. And so they still need to pay for and perform the utility phase and construction phase for this project. An estimated cost for both of these is around $7.6 to $7.9 million. They currently have programmed about $3.6 million. That's just for the construction phase. So that's more than half of that projected to be locally funded at this very moment before anything has been approved. So in order to get them some more money for this project, because it's very essential that this project gets done this year for KIPTA to be able to spend their Indiana dollars by the end of this fiscal year. The group suggested and would recommend that there are 2 new projects that have preliminary engineering phases in fiscal year 25 that you see here, the Graybook Lane Extension Project and the intersection of East Spring Street and Harold. That you can see there, that those be shifted back a year for every phase that's programmed. So they have a PE phase in 25, both of them do. They would be shifted to 26. Construction phases respectively from 29 to 30, and then respectively 28 to 29. So we shift all of them back and then take that funding that was programmed PE phases, put them to the construction phase of Mount Tabor Road, and then add of the $878,000 available, add $367,272 of those dollars to the project. If you do all 3 of those things, move the PE funding, add the additional unprogrammed funding, that gets you to a total federal share of the utilities and construction phase cost combined to the $4.6 million number you see in the second bullet point there. That's the recommendation for New Albany. It's all those moving parts to fund more, get more funds to Mount Tabor Road for this fiscal year. Next one is for Floyd County. It's ID 1558. It's the Bridge 51 project. They authorized right-of-way funds of $997,312 last year, and they need a little more right-of-way funding if available, which it is. And so they requested $158,348 for right-of-way to be programmed in fiscal year 25. They have a construction phase in fiscal year 26 that they are on track for. Currently programmed at that $3.6 million number you see there. So that's the request for Floyd County from the available fiscal year 25 funds. Another one is Clarksville. ID 3019 stands for Avenue. They have a PE phase that is currently programmed at $323,000 for fiscal year 25. And they are requesting, their cost estimates for that have increased substantially since they applied for it, and so they're requesting $209,282 STBG to be added to this PE phase. That would bring the federal funding total to $532,282 for the PE phase that stands for Avenue. If you take the estimated cost of PE compared to the estimated cost of the construction phase, it's going to be about the PE is gonna be about 15% of the construction phase, which is a relatively reasonable estimate for the cost. 209,000 for Clarksville Stansford Avenue project is the third recommendation for the fiscal 25 funds, unprogrammed funds. And then, this is from Clark County. They have the Henryville Sidewalk Project, KIT ID 3180. This is currently, has PE funds programmed of a total of $25,338 and split between fiscal year 27 and 28, with a construction phase in fiscal year 29 worth $520,000. These are all even protect funds. They are hoping to do this project now, if possible, or at least part of the project, at least the PE funds. So they have requested $144,000 of protect funds to be added to fiscal year 25 to do the PE phase this year, and then the 27 and 28, $25,000 would be removed. This is moving project up. Adjacent to this, not as a result, but another thing that has happened with Clark County that would affect the funding in future years for Indiana program is the one I mentioned earlier, Jeff Charlestown Pike Improvements, KIT ID 3177. That's the construction phase that is currently programmed for fiscal year 28. That's worth $3.3 million. Clark County is moving forward with that project locally this year. And so that $3.3 million currently programmed with CRP funds will be removed from the funding. Would be removed from the tracking sheet and therefore available in this call for projects. So, one more time, just the summary. 367,272 for New Albany, 158,000 for Floyd County's project, 209,000 for Clarksville's, and then 144,000 for Clark County's, with the two other New Albany projects moving back fiscal year, and then Clark County is removing the funding from their $3.3 million Jeff Charlestown Pike project. So those are a lot of changes, but that would be the summary of them. I showed you this earlier. This is the breakdown of if all these things were approved, this is what the breakdown would look like. So action requested to recommend approval for all of these funding changes.
Thank you, Brady. Any discussion? Questions, comments? Okay. So do we have a motion to approve fiscal year 2025 Indiana MPO dedicated funding as presented today?
I'll make that motion, Larry, with New Albany.
Thank you. Second? Okay, I second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye or raise your hands.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, motion passes. Item number 10 on the agenda is phase shift, and staff will discuss the most recent phase shift as requested. Action will be requested as well, and Brady will continue to stay with us.
Last time. Okay, now we're getting towards the end of the Kentucky fiscal year, 2024. So a little review of the project minutes and guidebook rules that are applicable here. As we know, every project gets 2 phase shifts that are free. Essentially, you can shift it as many years in the future as you need to, but there's 2 without any kind of action needed other than updates to the tip. If you reach your 3rd phase shift, it requires a phase shift exception request, which is what is one of the items of this agenda item we're doing now. There's a few projects that need a 3rd shift and are requesting an exception from the TTCC and ultimately the TTC. Also, part of these rules, once you hit your 4th shift, according to our guidebook rules, your project is removed from the tip and you can recompete for the next 12 projects. Another important item, and this will cover the next couple slides here, is the initial design phase of a project must be obligated in the year it is programmed in the tip. So you get a project, you have your initial design phase, we'd like you to show that you are ready to start the project and begin that process in that initial design phase. So those are the two things, initial design phase, and then this third phase shift, this phase shift exception, are the things we're talking about in this agenda item. The first 3 slides here, I'll talk about a couple projects that have design phases in fiscal year 24 that are, looks like they're not going to reach authorization status. I'll be obligated this fiscal year. First one's Jefferson Town's Town Eastview Collector Extension, KIPS ID 3111. Design phase for fiscal year 24, worth $352,000. This is a project that won't reach its authorization this year, and the design funds will be removed from the tip. This is something that he already knows, and although he's not here today, and so they are planning on recompeting for these funds in this call for projects, and will probably have to shift their construction phase associated with that down the road, since they're not done with the design as program.
So can I ask a question? Sure. Did you say that the construction funds are programmed in the TID?
Yes.
And the design funds are programmed in the TID, but we potentially are gonna vote to eliminate the design phase, but leave the construction funds in the program?
Yes, so the idea is that, with the timing of this call for projects, that the design funds will be removed from the tip right after this, because we're in the call for projects period. They will be recompeting to see if, design, like if the group would vote to give them again design funds. If they do, then as a part of that, they'll probably have to shift their construction phase back to make the schedule work out. If it's voted that the design funds are not granted to Jefferson Town, at that point, they would either need to make a commitment to fund the design phase locally, because it's in the construction phase in the tip and you have to pay for it, or they would have to remove it. If they can't commit to funding the design phase in some other way, we would have to remove the construction phase from the tip. That makes sense? Yeah. Okay. And that applies to these next 2 projects as well, that same concept. So the next one is a little metro project, Connection 22 signal system upgrade, KIPS ID 1353. They have a design phase for 2024 worth $177,750. Same situation as the last project. And third one is downtown Louisville traffic signal upgrades, KIPS ID 3127, fiscal year 24 design. Currently programmed $312,000. And so the design funds pending approval from this group in TDC, the combined amount of the design funds programmed, all of that would be added into the total for the call for projects. It could be given back to these projects through that process, but there's no guarantee of that with the other adjustments that I just talked about with Tom. So those are the 3 projects with that initial design phase issue. And then there are a few phase shift exception requests. There are 4 specifically. First one is from Jefferson Town. It's for their Good Samaritan Bicycle and Pedestrian Trail Connector, KIPS ID 2082, state ID 5-486. They have a construction phase program for fiscal year 24 that has had 2 phase shifts. This would be their 3rd one. They're currently programmed for that $1.4 million number. And then I'm just going to read real quick kind of justification and reason for the shift as submitted to KIPTA staff through their application. This project had design approval and was moving towards funding authorization for the construction phase. And then the pandemic happened, being that we are now moving past the pandemic, the city is aggressively moving to advance the project. District 5 is requiring a new design review of the construction plans and all associated documents, giving a lapse of time prior to requesting the funding authorization. The city is working with District 5 now and gaining these updates and will not be able to get authorized in fiscal year 24. Therefore, the city is requesting an exemption, exception in this 3rd exception. That's the first one for Jefferson Town. The second one is from Louisville Metro, Ely Lake Park segment, the Louisville Loop. It's KIPS ID 2539, state ID 5-3034. they have a 2024 construction phase with TA funds, that this would be the third shift, and this is what Metro has submitted as justification for this third phase shift. The original project corridor was planned to follow the KYTC dam, but KYTC removed this alignment option after design had started. Design then had to be redone to accommodate the alignment shift. In June of 2023, Metro was notified of the need for a full biological assessment due to the presence of blade press. Blade press can only be evaluated in spring, February to March, so the project was delayed for this accommodation. Additionally, there is an MSD sewer project in the area which limits access for construction. So currently we're awaiting your NEPA clearance associated with that blade press issue. And then they are expecting phase 2 design to begin in fall 2024 with joint inspection anticipated in spring 2025. So that's the second one. Third is University of Louisville. This is KIPT ID 2982. This is their second Street, 3rd Street Museum Drive intersection, Brandeis Avenue project, Brandeis Avenue. State ID 5-581, 2024 utilities and construction phases are both needing a shift. They're kind of doing those together. Most recently shifted a lot of earlier this year. They shifted a lot of program utility funds to the construction phase. So it's mostly construction phase money at this point in TIP. And they are asking to shift from 2024 to 2026. They state that due to the environmental process taking longer than expected, the need to construct the 3rd Street portion during the summer months because of closure, we would anticipate construction to occur during the summer of 26. So they'd like to do 26 to 25 just because of the time frame in their schedule. I don't know if you have anything else you wanted to add, Will, on that.
Yes, and I'll make it short. There should have also been one for.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll get to that.
Okay, sorry. For the design phase on this.
Yes, so that one has had a shift.
Okay. You're sure all great. And so that is correct, what you were saying. That was the initial reason we want to push 2026. We also have a little bit of back and forth now on some acceptance of some of the design that we were going through. So that also pushes the design for phase 2. But we think that 2026 is reasonable, but certainly we don't want to try to say 2025 and move that and have to not make that. So we think 2026 is reasonable.
Can I ask for clarification? So on the chart you gave, it says after obligation of any fund beyond or any phase beyond design, R, U, and C, there's unlimited phase shifts. So why are we having to grant exceptions on when you're asking for construction phases here?
That's a good question. So once a project has an obligation of a right-of-way phase or utility phase or construction phase, it's considered committed, I guess, by the region. It's a project that's gone far enough along that we're committed to finishing the project, no matter how long it takes, essentially. That's been the decision by this group. And so for these projects, they have not had any right-of-way utility or construction phases obligated in the past. They've only had design phases. And so that's why they hit that marker where we need to have these discussions. That make sense?
Yeah, so it has to do with the obligation.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. And one more project here. This last one. So this is a special exception request. University of Louisville, pedestrian improvements, 88 curb cuts and ramps. KIPT ID 2585, state ID 5-3220. They have a construction phase in 2024 with SDBG funds worth the federal amount $534,568. This project is this project would actually be the 4th phase shift. So according to the rules that we laid out in the chart that I was talking about earlier, according to the strict standards of the project management guidebook, this project would automatically have its funds removed from the TIP if it's not obligated by this time, because it's already had 3 phase shifts, including a phase shift exception process granted in the past. This is the first time that a project, because these rules are relatively new, this is just a few years that we've had these rules. This is the first project that has reached the point where it's had 4 phase shifts. Okay, and so there is an exception being requested by University of Louisville. I'm going to read something right here from them. Field review of existing ramp locations required much more site-specific design than originally thought. Instead of taking existing plans and modifying completely new plans and a field survey was needed for over 40 or over 70 ramps. Submittal of NEPA documents are still out for review. Review time on plans, depending on the corrections of those, will push this to a late fall advertisement, anticipating advertisement in December before construction. In construction starting in next summer. So CUPTA staff has met with University of Louisville as well as KYTC about this project. And the whole point of our guidebook rules is to get projects done and get them constructed. That's the goal. That's what all of this is, to help facilitate and push forward. So it is a recommendation by CUPTA staff for this project, even though it is the 4th phase shift and by the letter of the law, it should just be removed from the tip that this project is very close. It's December is their estimation for getting this project advertised to allow a 5-month extension for this project, with the stipulation that if this project does not have its funds authorized after 5 months, that the funds would automatically be removed from the tip without action here or at TBC. This would be the time to get that. Also with the stipulation that this is a special exception beyond the guidebook rules that is not guaranteed to any future project. The reason that CUPTA staff would recommend this for this project is because we have backing from KYTC helping us ensure to know that this project is very close to getting constructed, which is what we want. If you're getting to a 4th phase shift and you're really not that close, then it might be a different scenario in future years. But that would be the recommendation for staff for this project. I don't know if there's anything else for this one, though, that you wanted to add as well.
Just to, in the summary, Kerry explained that, Brady repeated that it was a lot more detail oriented than we thought. To get into specifics, there was kind of plans that existed. We were going in and clean things up. There's service tunnels that were running throughout, which really hampered our location of some of the ramps. But at the end of the day, the plans that we submitted to KYTC for sidewalk, for simple sidewalk ramps, was 64 pages long. The roadway with less plan sheets, they got very detailed, and so we thought that was my fault. I didn't realize that it was going to take that much detail to get some ramps through there. We figured there were a dozen or so. We didn't realize that every ramp became a special situation. But we have turned the plans in for review. We think 5 months is more than adequate to get it out there.
Thank you.
Cool. And so those are all the phase shift requests and the design phases that would lose their initial design funding. Just a reminder, if for all phase shifts, not including these, but not just these, if you haven't already, go ahead and submit an expedited application for any phase shifts that you need. If you would like it to be in this most soon administrative modification, we're going to need those by September 16th. Anything submitted after September 16th, we're going to have to wait until next month's administrative modification. So action requests to recommend approval or denial or whatever this group would like for the phase shift exception.
Thank you, Brady. Any discussion, any questions? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve phase shifts and exceptions as presented today?
I'll make the motion, understanding Matt Meunier's understanding his projects.
So he knows, yeah, we met with him just last week.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second. It's Larry.
Thank you, Larry. Any discussion?
And so, just to be clear, the motion is to allow these exceptions to carry over one more year with the exception of that, durability haircut job, which only goes 5 months before it gets kicked out.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks. Any opposition? Motion passes. Thank you very much, Brady. So the next item on the agenda, number 11, congestion management process. Staff will showcase recent developments for the update to the congestion management process, and I will try to pronounce that correctly. Aaron Monsell, I apologize if I didn't.
Correct.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. So, regarding the condition management process update, I'm here to talk about the current update that is currently underway by Commitee staff. So the CMP, as the condition management process, is federally mandated under the Infrastructure Investment and Job Act or Transportation Management Areas as TMAs with population exceeding 200,000 people. And its primary objective is to systematically identify, analyze, and monitor traffic congestion on the roadways. The CMP helps develop and implement data-driven strategies to effectively manage congestion and ensure smooth traffic flow in the region. Prior to this, the last CMP update was in 2018, and it was approved in July 2018 by the TPC. So on the screen right now is an example of what we are currently developing. And this is what we will expect at the end when we're giving the final presentation. We started by utilizing the current data we subscribe to, which is the streetlight data sets. So we now plotted out the congestion in our region. So this is an example, but this is precisely for the interstate. And this will be replicated on the arterials, on the collectors, and if needed, the local roads. So we specifically use the street light, that's what we're working on right now. And for instance, for example, the highlighted box right there from Gene Snyder to, that's on 64 from Gene Snyder to Osborne Parkway. So we did brief analysis to give an insight of how the congestion is over time within on the daily time normally. So we can see we broke down that segment into two for precise explanation. So from Gene Snyder to Black and Baker Parkway, we can see the initial westbound and eastbound traffic. But in general, we also understand that there's quite a higher congestion eastbound in the evenings, as you can see. Although on Black and Baker to Gene Snyder, precisely in the evening has quite a higher congestion if you look at the values of cumulative delays on the y-axis. So this is precisely what we will be showing to you in the nearest future. And no action required. If you have any questions.
Thank you.
So there's no questions. Again, this is our first CMP with the streetlight tool. As Aaron Maselli said, we subscribed to streetlight right after we did our most recent congestion management process. So we're pretty excited about what Aaron Maselli's got in the works and what we'll have to show for you in the not too distant future. So it's kind of a sneak peek.
Thank you.
So the congestion management plan is a federal requirement in an NTO area.
For the large MPOs, for the TMAs, the 200,000 population above. So that's one of the unique things that we have to do that maybe some of the smaller MPOs across Kentucky need to do not.
It identifies strategies for reducing congestion, making traffic flow better.
Sure. Yeah, it's I've always viewed it as kind of there's two components to it. One is the number crunching, the graphs, the maps, the identification, the red means slow, green means fast. I think that's important. I think that's a tool that KYTC and local governments can utilize to go forth and identify local issues of concern or what have you. There's another part of it that's, let's call it more the federally mandated requirement that's required to essentially create a process that effectively slows you down on just widening everything, right? You have a systematic process that says these things are going to be considered before we go and widen every interstate to 10 lanes or something like that. That's extreme, I know, but that's the nature of the requirement of the CMP. But it's not that we dislike that part, but the data number crunching, at least for some of us, is far more intriguing.
A good segment here selected, the segment of the highway where we all pass when we come to this meeting. So
Yeah.
I don't know what's the solution, but probably not an easy one for that particular stretch of 64. So I don't know if widening would help. I don't think so, but we need to be creative because that is very congested part of the highway at any time of the day almost.
We're early enough in this process that if KYTC or any agency really has some ideas and say, hey, it'd be cool if you could show this or try to show this, as I've always said, and got up that podium many times over the years, we like to use our streetlight subscriptions. It's pretty expensive for us to use, and we're thankful that the TPC and the board have approved our continued subscription. So we love to try some new things on there. So if there's something that you'd like to give it a shot, please let us know in the next 6 weeks, a couple months.
So are surface streets gonna be modeled as well as interstates? Not ju, and then is there a certain level of surface streets you go down to? You wouldn't probably do alleys and that kind of.
We'll see. We'll see. Some of it is limited by the streetlight, right? Streetlight data. While in theory, that allows us to go pretty far down. I don't know if the alleys are realistic or not. I would say I feel comfortable saying we'll get to the arterials for sure. And the collectors seems likely also, but arterials for sure.
We get to them in time that they could be incorporated in the Safe Streets for All data.
Potentially, hopefully the detailed analysis that will get done with this will partner nicely with the detailed analysis that you all have seen for Safe Streets for All, and that we'll have great state-of-the-art safety analysis and hopefully some state-of-the-art congestion analysis that can turn into some what do you want to call them, hotspots or parts. A great project would fix both, right? The ideal project fixes both at the same time, and that's not always the case. So if you can fix one or the other, you're not doing that either. So probably, I feel like we'll probably be done with this around the same time. So how much they'll talk to each other is something we can look into. Yeah, I feel like some similar time frame.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So moving forward, item number 12, Kentucky Indiana Transportation Excellence Award, KITE. The 10th annual Keep the Kite Award is now open for nominations. Staff will discuss the details and timeline for the nomination process and presentation of the Keep the Kite Award. Greg will present.
Yes, so it is that time of the year for highlighting those projects from the last calendar year for the Kite Award. We had some great projects, I think, last year. New Albany won for their complete streets and Main Street overhaul. So I have put on our website, if you just go to kipta.org/transportation, put a nomination form on there that you can download and fill out any of those projects. We do ask that the project either be completed or at least really close to completion in the 2023 calendar year or 2024 calendar year. So I will also send out nominations to all the committee members as well following this meeting. So you all have that. Just ask that you all have those turned in back to me by email by October 25th. That is the day after TPC, October TPC. So nominations will run from there. We'll take about a week or so to judge at that point, and then we will award that at the November 19th annual meeting in St. Matthews.
So, a question.
Yes.
When you said you wanted the project complete, do you mean like construction complete?
And we'd like to have at least open, we'd like it ideally to be open to the public, or at least really, really close type thing. Like, hey, we're finishing up maybe one lane of this, or there's one aspect left that's gonna, be done in the next 6 months. Maybe creeps in a little bit into 2025, but it's close, it's pretty open for public. We don't want anything that is like, oh, this is 5 years out.
What'd you have in mind? Something that was maybe the planning process was award,
Right,
or
yeah,
awarded?
there was some remarkable design phase where there was great planning or something, I don't know.
Hopefully that project, whatever one you're thinking of, could be a great 2025 or 2026 project.
We work on a lot of projects, so when we try to narrow it down,
Right.
We're not gonna look at design phase work and how awesome that is, we'll just look at construction projects and how awesome.
I'd say it's up to the nominee to state their best case,
Right.
No matter what.
By the end of this calendar year, right?
Correct, yes, 2024. Yeah, and a good example is one you all put in last year, the one out in Taylorsville Road at 155. I think you all had like just a little bit of a lane left to build on that, but for the most part, it was completed. When we were out there flying, we were able to see at least see what the vision was gonna be. With the bridge, I think was only left to fix, so that was a really good example of something that was really close and it was gonna be open within the next, I think you all opened it in the spring.
We have several. We're wrapping up this fall, and for everybody who wants to know, it was my understanding that the Old Henry Extension opened to traffic yesterday.
Yes,
And a really interesting project, and a new connection to Oldham County that was wanted by the mayor of Louisville when Jerry Abramson was the mayor, and Dwayne Runner was the judge in Oldham County. And it's now finally open to traffic. So anyhow, that could be a contender.
He's showing his cards early.
Yeah. Oh, that's just I move could be done, which we can all appreciate.
Is there a category for planning studies or?
No, unless they're just, we kind of talk about that a little bit, if they're like major changes in the region, like they have major impact in the region kind of thing, but we would prefer it to be a project only.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any other questions for Joe? Good, thanks. And the next item is other business.
Just have one real quick thing. I want to introduce the TTCC to Elijah Beliles, back there in Blue Jacket. Elijah started at KIPTA just this week as a field transportation planner. Elijah comes to us most recently from the town of Clarksville. So you all get to know Elijah real soon. So welcome, Elijah.
Welcome to the team.
Looking forward to meet everybody.
Thank you. So that's it. And finally, this was an interesting meeting. We learned a lot today about different things, but here we are with number 14, adjourn. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Well, I said.